All right, folks, we're going to try to cover a lot within 1 hour. So hold on to your ass and we'll see what we can get through. There's a lot of topics up for discussion today. Of course, there is the crap that's happening right now in England concerning Jeremy Corbyn. If you're waiting for that, I think I'll use that as probably the second or third topic. What I'm going to lead with is what's going on in California first. The issue with California is that it's going under a gubernatorial election, and the focus during that election is not likely to be what's really affecting California, which is its budget deficit. What's really going to be the focus is in certain ways just things that are, they have to do with wedge issues within the liberal left community. So we're going to cover that. We're going to cover the Women's March and Farrakhan feminism. Those of you that know what I'm talking about, know what I'm talking about. Those of you that don't, well, hold on, because I'm actually going to read through some of the new updates that I have for the work that I've been doing to talk about how Farrakhan, Louis Farrakhan, for those of you that don't know, the leader of the Nation of Islam, has had a career that is basically, it should be kryptonite to the progressive movement. If you really look at his record, it's unbelievable that they're giving such a pass to people who associate with him, like Tamika Mallory, and I'm talking about them giving her a pass. In my opinion, if we have freedom of speech in this country, Tamika Mallory can associate with whoever she wants. She can associate with whoever she wants, but she's part of the Women's March. She's part of the Me Too movement. She's part of the group of people who don't want freedom of speech. They're against freedom of speech. And if she has such a strong standard for everybody else, then we have to turn the screws on her when she doesn't violate, when she violates her own movement's principles for freedom of speech. So, there's so much that you can say about Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour. Linda Sarsour has been in the news a lot more than Tamika Mallory over the past year, but to be honest with you, Sarsour has not actually done anything to, counteract what's been going on in the in this Women's March movement. She's basically taken the position that anybody who criticizes the movement must be some sort of retrograde fascist. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the radical left and radical left Judaism supporting Jeremy Corbyn. I have a link to a video. Can't really show it on this stream. With Richard Cooper of the Jewish Voice for Labor, who justifies. He's basically of the view that anything that's been happening in the Labor Party, where people have been suspended for revealed issues where they hate Jews or whatever, that's not an issue, right? Those people should not be suspended. However, Tommy Robinson, who today had to have an escort of 20 people plus police just to get to the speaker's corner, just to talk in public, that type of thing is unacceptable in Britain. That's the difference in freedom of speech. He wants freedom of speech within his own movement against, the enemies that they see, whether it's Christianity, or if it's the Israelis, or if it's the rich. They're always talking about for the many, not the few, and then they go on these rants about toxic masculinity and white people and whatever. That's what the Labour Party's become in the UK. So, hopefully more of you will join, and we'll talk a little more about those issues in the UK. I will probably have a chat this week with a friend from England, who I remember reaching during the whole Brexit crisis. It was probably a few months after Brexit happened. So That is set to happen, I believe, on Monday. So put that on your calendars. If I'll set up the stream whenever I can. Also, a stream on Tuesday concerning what's going on in South Africa. Let me just take a look at something. Stupid Yahoo updates, man. So let's start off with California first, since it's the one with the least amount of play, I think, among the broader media. So the first thing I want to introduce is the real problem with California. And the real problem is this, that the CalPERS organization, which is it's the California Public Employee Retirement System, is really going through a crunch right now. These people who have been working for the state for decades, it's not just the state, it's municipal employees who are signed up to that system, the public employee retirement system, pension system. They're retiring and they're bringing the state even more into debt now that they're not working. And first of all, how are you going to replace those people? I think that's not the issue, but then you have to replace them with people who also earn a pretty high salary. Also, how are you supposed to pay them salaries like this? Over $258,000, almost $259,000. Okay, so former city officials. This is from the LA Daily News. New retirees in Gardena, Pasadena, and Riverside make $200,000 pensions. Former city officials in Gardena, Pasadena, and Riverside were among the highest paid new retirees in the California Public Employees Retirement System last year, according to a watchdog group that tracks public pay and pensions. Transparent California placed 7 Southern California officials in the top 15 of their statewide ranking, including recently retired pensioners in El Segundo, Lake Forest, and Santa Monica. So those people, yeah, you have here 7 people who are earning $200,000 salaries every year. Transparent California placed 7 Southern California officials in the top 15. Okay, so more than 25,000 new retirees began receiving pensions from CalPERS last year, at a total of more than $1 billion annually, the group said. Transparent California, so that's just in 1 year, they have a new $1 billion liability, and California is already in debt. Transparent California released the figures Monday as part of an ongoing campaign to raise awareness about the growing costs of California's pension system, according to Executive Director Robert Fellner. The total amount spent on retirement benefits rose to nearly $21 billion last year, a 43% increase from 2012. It is siphoning resources from public services. It is driving taxes higher, Fellner said. The real driver of this cost is the generosity of these benefits. So this is a watchdog group over here in California. So this is the city manager here. Former Gardena city manager Mitchell Lansdell ranked first on the list with a pension of $258,992. He retired in December 2016 after 44 years of public service. Lansdell could not be reached for comment. Acting city manager Edward Medrano said he felt Lansdell's payout is fitting for his long career. While Lansdell's pension wouldn't be possible for an employee retiring under the California Public Employees Pension Reform Act of 2013, Medrano noted that Lansdell isn't nearly as high on the list compared to retirees who entered the system before 2017. So they're saying this isn't even that bad, right? So then it goes through some other people. Here we go. 1 second. I wonder why this doesn't highlight when I'm on Chrome. So here we go. So we got Pasadena's former deputy police chief Daryl Qualls came in 5th. So a former police chief making $215,000 a year. Assistant police chief for Riverside, $215,000. Fire chief for Vernon, $215,000. So how are these people? I'm fine with these public officials making a good salary, enough to some of these people, firefighters and police. It's a very hazardous job, you know. But this is a massive pension, over $200,000 a year, and California is really feeling a crunch right now, just to fix their infrastructure. Remember, I think it was early fall of last year, they had that issue. First of all, they needed government bailouts in order to deal with the wildfires in both northern and southern California. Then they needed bailouts in order to, I think before that, they needed bailouts for that one dam. Let me see, forgot what it was called. And I know for some of you who may tune in later, the Oroville Dam, the Lake Oroville Dam. This might seem like not that big of an issue because you were tuning in maybe for Farrakhan and Corbyn, but I'm promising you that that's coming up. But think about it. This state, the largest state in the U.S., is paying people $200,000 retirement pensions for being, a local police chief and stuff like that. That's a lot of money, and they're not going to be able to sustain that, and they're going to need a bailout. But what is the focus right now in the race? Last I checked, I could be wrong. It could have shifted by now, but Gavin Newsom's past affair disqualifies him from the governorship. For those of you that don't know, California Governor Gavin Newsom used to be mayor of San Francisco, and one of his rivals in the primary, Amanda Renneria, said Thursday his past sexual misconduct disqualifies him from holding higher office, and he should resign from his position as lieutenant governor. If he was in the legislature right now, he'd be called out, and like what we've seen, being forced out. So that's in reaction to a number of Cal State representatives and senators being revealed to have sexually harassed people. I think even a female state senator was forced to resign because she harassed a male staffer. We've got to be sending the message that the more power you have, the more responsibility you have to protect others. As mayor of San Francisco more than a decade ago, Newsom had an affair with one of his city hall aides, who was also married to his campaign manager at the time. Newsom has repeatedly apologized for the transgression, and in a Facebook post last month, his former appointment secretary, Ruby Rippey Gibney, said she was doubtful it was workplace sexual harassment. She said, "Yes, I was a subordinate, but I was also a free-thinking 33-year-old adult married woman and mother," she wrote. "I also happen to have an unfortunate inclinations towards drinking to excess and self-destruction. I can't blame anyone for my part in this ugly episode," Ribby Gibney added. But Renneria told the Bee that a boss having sex with his employees is an unacceptable situation. So that's an interesting. I want to ask people later if they can comment. Do you think it's acceptable? Now, he's the mayor of the city of San Francisco, and this is a consensual affair with a married woman. Do you think that's acceptable in for a mayor to do? I just want to hear your thoughts. Let's keep reading here. She also criticized. Okay, so no one should be beyond that accountability. She said the bar needs to be higher. And in fact, the bar is lower here. She also criticized Newsom, who was then 38, for during the same period dating a 19-year-old model who was photographed drinking wine at an event where Newsom also made an appearance. Newsom said he never provided her with alcohol. So that this kind of brazen and self-serving political stunt doesn't even deserve a response. Nathan Click, a spokesman for Newsom's campaign, said in a text message, asked last month about the affair in the context of the #MeToo movement against sexual harassment. Newsom said, "I acknowledged it. I apologized for it. I learned an enormous amount from it." Yeah, right. Renneria, a former Hillary Clinton campaign official, I think she was a national official, shocked political observers last month when she jumped into the gubernatorial race against 4 fellow Democratic candidates and more than 3 years after Newsom launched his campaign. So he launched his campaign in 2014, I guess, when this was just when he was reelected lieutenant governor of California. Allies of former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa charged that she may be trying to draw Latino voters away from him to help Newsom. Renteria said Thursday that Newsom's continued political ascent sends a dangerous message to sexual harassment victims that they will be the one to suffer the consequences if they come forward while their boss gets promoted. Let me just show you the rest of this. It's not that long, by the way. She called on Newsom to immediately step down from the role you shouldn't have to begin with, though she stopped short of asking him to drop out of the governor's race. If he doesn't have the public trust to be lieutenant governor, obviously I think he's obviously disqualified to hold the highest position of power in the state of California. Republicans running for California governor already slammed Newsom and Villaraigosa, whose 20-year marriage also ended amid revelations of an affair with a TV reporter while he was mayor, for their serious marital infidelities at the debate last month. In October, a Los Angeles street artist hung door signs mocking Newsom's behavior throughout the neighborhood where actress Reese Witherspoon was holding a fundraiser for him. So, this is local California politics, and it's a bunch of mudslinging. What people should really be talking about over there, and that includes those Republican candidates, and maybe they are, is the fact that the state is going bankrupt. What is unfortunately the case here is that the liberal establishment in Hollywood and in California as a whole, they've created this environment where sexual harassment allegations or even innuendo here, because this is not sexual harassment. This is a consensual affair between a married woman and I don't know if Newsom's married. He looks a little like Christian Bale, by the way. Let me see if I can get a picture of him. So let me see here. In any case, if you look at the true original definition of adultery, here, let me show you his picture. This dude, I mean, he's probably got something going on. I don't think he's, he is married. He was married to Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's a conservative TV commentator. And then he's also been married since 2008. So he cheated on his wife while he was mayor. And he cheated on her with a married woman. This is the guy who's going to be the governor of California. I don't think that should be a reason he shouldn't be governor of California. But here's the kicker. Okay, those of you that think that that's the real issue here don't understand what's going on. It was already mentioned by Renteria, who I probably wouldn't support anyway. I don't live in California. The real issue is that you have somebody who is supposed to be leading the most progressive state in the union, and he basically dated his staffer. That's a boss-employee relationship. Who was married at the time. There's the issue of that 19-year-old girl that he openly dated. This is no joke. Hey, Mad Dodge, what's going on? If you want to join, by the way, I can send you a link on Twitter. There's a couple of things that I think I might want somebody to sound off on with. Although I don't want to go too late today, I do want to go drop by the gym and do some lifting. So let me know in the chat if you're interested. I'll just send you the link. So on from there, next topic, we have the Farrakhan feminism. Okay, we're going to go through that. And I am actually going to talk on the Just My Stupid Opinion podcast later about Farrakhan feminism. I think he invited me on just to specifically outline it and everything. Let me be clear here. The reason that I've been calling it that is because basically we've been having this miscommunication of what's really the problem with the Farrakhan Women's March issue. People think that just because Farrakhan is very well known for hating Jews, that's really the issue of him being associated with any member of the Women's March leadership, meaning Tamika Mallory. But in reality, if you look at Farrakhan's entire career, there's not much feminist content there at all. So I'll tell you what. Let's go first to this article from Front Page Magazine, which is a right-wing publication, but they documented this from If Not Now, which is a left-wing pro. They're really a super pro-peace movement, and they're all about the peace movement and lobbying for the Palestinians or whatever, and they have a right to do that, but they're also doing it from the left. They're doing it from a progressive standpoint. Front Page Magazine is, by the way, from David Horowitz, who's a former progressive. He was, I think he was in the Weather Underground during the 70s, but I could be wrong. I know he was an editor of Ramparts Magazine, which was a major left-wing publication at the time. But they say, If Not Now says, we've seen a lot of people resonate with this statement. We've also seen people in our own community call us disgusting, pathetic, despicable, shameful, anti-Semites, and worse than capos. We think improving our movement and community isn't just possible, it's necessary. So let me see if I can actually get that article, by the way. Maybe they have a link to it. So If Not Now's support for the Women's March leader being criticized for their Farrakhan fandom is a useful demonstration of this fact. An anti-Israel group like If Not Now or Jade Street is also there to provide cover for anti-Semites. So that's their opinion. I think in reality, yes, they provide cover for it, but they also don't care. So Raphael Shimonov, a member of the anti-Israel hate group If Not Now, admitted that Farrakhan hated Jews, but tweeted about NOI's actually powerful and needed liberation work. Let me see if it's here. No. I'll have to look through Facebook to find it. Sorry, guys. It's from the 10th. Bear with me. I think they might have even. Here we go. If Not Now statement on Louis Farrakhan Women's March and anti-Semitism. Last week, a leader of the Women's March, an organization which, like us, exists to fight for freedom and dignity of all people, attended an event at which Louis Farrakhan spoke and expressed many of his long-held anti-Semitic, homophobic, and transphobic views. Okay. Since then, there has been immense outcry from the Jewish community expressing justified hurt, anger, and confusion. Let's be clear, Louis Farrakhan is an anti-Semite. He is a homophobe and a transphobe as well. And it is painful and confusing to see Women's March leaders embrace Farrakhan because it demonstrates that they may not take anti-Semitism as seriously as they take other forms of oppression. We love and respect our allies and will fight alongside them for justice. But it's important for us to know that they share our commitment to working against anti-Semitism as part of that shared struggle. The statement released by the Women's March on Tuesday was a first step, but it must be followed by meaningful action as well. Let us be clear as well, the reaction by the Anti-Defamation League, the Republican Jewish Coalition, and other Jewish institutions to this incident has been outsized, particularly in the face of the rise of violent anti-Semitic white nationalism. Well, that's a funny thing for them to say, because the ADL, which I have opposed for years, has been calling literally everything going on white nationalism and anti-Semitism. Okay, and for them to make that statement that this is outsized, this isn't even. First of all, I've said before that the real problem here is that Farrakhan is the least feminist religious leader you could probably find. You know, he makes Pat Robertson look like Madonna, and I should have used that in my article, but I have plenty of other analogies in there. While Farrakhan's influence is relatively small, this white nationalist movement has the ear of the President of the United States. Evidence, evidence, please, evidence, please. Let me see here. Mad Dodge, I just want you to be like kind of a sounding board, because we're talking about Jeremy Corbyn and whatever. If you don't want to get on, I know this might not be your specific topic, but we're talking a little about issues of who are, you know, these progressive movements. They talk all the time about hate and about keeping people comfortable and whatever, and not triggering people. It's a charade. Okay, if you look at the statements of these people that are being highlighted by people like David Horowitz, who, you know, he's not originally a right winger. He came from the hippie movement. You know, that it's the biggest false flag. I'm using the word false flag differently, so don't flag me for saying false flag. By false flag, I mean they're representing themselves in the wrong way. They're representing progressivism as the tolerant, hopeful ideology that accepts everybody, but it really is not. It accepts people who simply symbolize things that are, you know, that are radical and that upend society and that change the social order. But those things, they may not, you know, that they are harmful to people who they determine to be targets. So whereas traditional racism targeted black people and you know, the Chinese or Jews or Irish or Catholics, even though that's not a race, this new this new movement of progressive racism and progressive bigotries of other types, they target people of other groups. That's basically what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to get Mad Dodge on in a couple minutes. Let me see. What's the best way for me to... I'm going to send it to you through Twitter, okay? Just letting you know, Mad Dodge. I got to get my headphones. So here's a little pause here. I wasn't planning to have a guest on, but we're actually making decent time right now. So I'm sorry for the boring picture right now, but we're adding a person. So I'll just keep talking until Mad Dodge can come on. So where were we? So Farrakhan feminism, like I said, these if not now people, they're plenty willing to take these people, and then when somebody dares to criticize their reaction to it, they turn it immediately. They say, "Oh, but the alt-right. Oh, but the alt-right." Given this power discrepancy, so they always make it about the power discrepancy. The fact that you don't have any principles is irrelevant. Now, the power discrepancy is only relevant if you actually have principles that you stand by, but they don't. And given these institutions' own willingness to call out racism and Islamophobia in the American Jewish community, they do. The ADL does all the time, all the time. The Republican Jewish Coalition, I don't even follow. I don't think that they're nearly as influential as they make themselves out to be. And discrimination based on ethnicity and religion in Israel. It is unsettling to see how often the ADL and others criticize Black and Muslim activists and politicians for any association with Farrakhan. That the ADL and other Jewish leaders are undermining the Women's March fail to understand that the true threat to our community today is the rise of white nationalism is a galling moral failure. Now, again, the ADL will not shut up about the white nationalists. They have a hard on for it. It's hilarious. It would be hilarious if it wasn't so overplayed and downright McCarthyist. They just go after people for no reason whatsoever and call them white nationalists. Even Tim Pool was called a white nationalist recently. We have Mad Dodge here, the Mad Libertarian, from from out west. Whenever you're ready, just introduce yourself, or you can chat me if you're not ready to talk, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, hopefully my mic's working okay. And
I
as
can,
usual, I
I can
will
hear you.
have some background noise, unfortunately. Um, and I don't know, man. Like when it comes to the ADL and even the SPLC, they seem to cause more harm than good, do they not?
Yeah, you want to know something funny? We've been in contact since the summer, me and you, right?
Yeah, about, yep.
So the only video I've had that could have gone, and I'm not going to say it went viral, but it had more views than anything I've ever put together was the CNN blackmail video I put together when they tried to shame that dude or it might have even been a kid for sharing a meme concerning CNN and whatever. And they said, oh, he's a Nazi and whatever. That video got more views than anything I've ever made, and probably I won't have a video as popular as that one for a long time. It really resonated, and it's all because of the ADL and they're shaming people. I've written about 5 or 6 articles already. I call them the ANADL, the Aiding and Abetting Defamation League, because that's basically their attitude towards any topic that has to do with freedom of speech. All they're talking about is if it hurts people. They don't talk about whether people have a constitutional right to express themselves. And now on the gun control issue, they've also shot themselves in the foot, if you pardon the expression. They've come out in front in favor of it. There are a lot of Jewish gun owners that oppose it. There's a lot of other people that don't support gun control, and they look at the ADL and they say, what the hell do you care about private gun ownership?
Well, yeah, no, and it's like if there's one group of people that would learn from history and arm themselves, I believe it would be the Jewish population for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think that the whole, I do have this pamphlet here, by the way, that I'm gonna try to use it for some content, and this is called Hitler's Communism Unmasked. And guess who published it and what year?
Um, what year? Probably the late 40s or early 50s or something, right? Like
So
after the war, or is it pre-war?
this is from 1938, and it's from the Fireside Discussion Group of the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith. So, I
Oh,
looked,
no shit.
yeah, so I looked through it. It's not as much about Hitler being a communist himself, but it is basically denouncing the propaganda used by Stryker and other Hitler propagandists about communism and whatever, and saying, the whole thing here is that, I do believe that at some point, like some of the other alphabet soup organizations, the ADL had like a good function and purpose. It's been gone for several years now. They're just basically another of the groups that is used to police freedom of speech. And like you're saying, they're actually causing more hate towards Jews by people who otherwise probably couldn't care less, because all they're doing is they're speech policing.
Well, not only speech policing, but they're pushing these hate crime legislation through, and you're actually now policing thoughts directly. So, I mean, in my opinion, murder is murder. It's not a hate crime because the person I murdered looks different than me. I murdered somebody. I should go to prison for murder, not a hate crime on top of it. I don't like the idea of thought police.
Yeah, and I even I looked at Tom, Tom from our group, who is like a little more further to the right, and more white nationalist. And he had a video last week of a white lady, and it was blatantly a racist motivated crime. And I put in the comments, sarcastically, at least we have hate crimes legislation. The assailants aren't going to be charged with hate crimes legislation. There's selective enforcement. It depends on the prosecutors. It's all up to prosecutorial discretion. And I agree with you both because of the reasons that you mentioned, which I echo 100%, and because with any any crime that's passed, any law that's passed forbidding something, it really is up to the criminal justice system to decide whether to prosecute it or not.
Well, yeah, like if you look at the case in Chicago with that white disabled, he was 18, so man, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
When they kidnapped him and tortured him and yelled racial slurs, they didn't get charged with a hate crime, did they?
No, I don't think that they did. Pinochet, the no notification game. If you're not getting notifications from me, I don't know what to do about that. I wasn't actually planning to go on to this stream today, but I guess we'll keep going. But thanks for joining. Sorry for no notification, buddy, but I can't control how YouTube lets you know. Maybe you might need like a 15-minute. Mad Dodge, do you know this? Do you need a 15-minute buffer for notifications to happen?
I know it helps when I create the event ahead of time. That way, the 30-minute notification goes out.
Okay.
So I know that helps.
So that must have been it. So sorry, Pinochet, but next time. So by the way, later I am going to be on Just My Stupid Opinion to talk about Farrakhan feminism, which is what we're talking about right now. There is, by the way, and I'm going to bring that up then, this penalty that's being, or I wouldn't say penalty, like more of they're getting some blowback because of the Farrakhan issue. This is Alyssa Klein. I remember looking through and isn't she a darling there? Isn't she a fetching young lady? Would you say so, Mr. Matt Dodge?
Well, yeah, is that Styx's little sister? You know, she's got the leather jacket going on.
Yeah, she's a very dashing young lady, if I may say, to the Women's March ex social media director. I believe, without objectifying her physique, I would say that she would be quite the mate for the aspiring suitor, be they male or female or triceratops, whatever. So anyway, the gist of this article, New York Post is 50-50 whether they put bullshit or not bullshit. They have a lot of crap on their website, but they have some good stories too. So this is from Doria Luick. I've never heard of her before, but the Women's March, a civil rights group at the center of protests against the Trump presidency, is losing top staffers and supporters over its leadership's refusal to denounce a racist, homophobic, and anti-Semitic rant by Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan. I keep saying Louis because I've been listening to what's that group? Because we were discussing Louis Armstrong this weekend, so I keep saying Louis. It depends what part of the country you're from, whether it's Louis or Louis, but it's Louis Farrakhan. And excuse me. What they forgot to mention is that was also anti-Mexican because he said it was Mexican Jews, which doesn't really make any sense. So the latest to jump ship is high-profile staffer Alyssa Klein, who quit last week as the group's social media director. Klein called Farrakhan a dangerous troll, and that's kind of mean. Would you say?
Yeah, a little bit. It's kind of
that's uncalled for. There's a lot of things you can call Louis Farrakhan, but he's not a dangerous troll. And he tweeted on March 5th that Women's March leaders are turning a blind eye to the hate spoken about a group of people. Regional branches in Canada, Florida, and Washington, D.C. have condemned the leadership's unwillingness to speak out against Farrakhan. And Planned Parenthood, the movement's most prominent sponsor, dumped Women's March co-president Tamika Mallory as a keynote speaker at a luncheon next month. I think that she'd be fine over there, except for the fact that Louis Farrakhan hates abortion. But if you have somebody who's anti-feminist being the spiritual leader of this Tamika Mallory lady, I don't see why having somebody who's also anti-abortion would be a contradiction either. Okay, so the controversy erupted over a Farrakhan speech. We don't have to go through that, but claimed that they run the governments of the U.S. and Mexico, so that they're calling that the Jews. I don't see the Mexico angle, because if we ran Mexico, I would say that you would probably have a lot of the people over there would be less happy, because you have all these neurotic Jewish comedians like Richard Lewis and Larry David. And I think that that type of mood would take over the people. That would really bring down the, make their brown eyes blue over there. Sorry to get a little edgy, but I think that really was ridiculous when he mentioned Mexico in that rant, Louis Farrakhan. And I've seen some crazy things come out of his mouth, but that one really didn't make any sense. So Farrakhan gave a shout out to Mallory, who was in the audience for the 3-hour rant and later posted photos from the event. Mallory responded to anger over the speech by saying that she affirmed the validity of the feelings of those who were offended, and that she didn't expect her presence of the speech to lead anyone to question my beliefs. Mad Dodge, why is it wrong to be a feminist if you emulate somebody who says that a woman who can't cook is unfit to be a mother and to hell with her? I mean, what's wrong with that?
Well, I would like to point out, it would be nice if women learned how to cook without reading a box. That would be pretty sweet. But
all right, yeah.
I'm married and my wife does know how to cook. I'm lucky, but
I think
But
if I could interject, I think it kind of is dumb I get it that women traditionally cook, but now it's pretty common for women, for both spouses, to be working. So I don't see why either spouse could be a cook. I'm not offended by it, but I don't see why he's so bent out of shape that there's women who can't cook. I mean, there's a lot of dudes who, probably 40 or 50 years ago would not know how to cook at all, because it was usually the woman. And now it's kind of changed because there's more women in the workplace.
Well, yeah, like at my house, I do the barbecuing and my wife cooks in the kitchen. But Farrakhan made a lot of anti-white statements in the past. So why are they drawing the line at this feminist issue? They're all good with him being habitually racist towards a certain class of people, but by God, he's an anti-feminist. Screw him.
Oh, they're not really complaining about the anti-feminism either. I'm the one who's bringing it up. That's why I started the whole, and I want more people to take it up, because people really aren't taking notice yet. The hashtag Farrakhan feminism, I made that crap up, but that's really the truth. The only thing that people seem to care about is his stuff against Jews, which, is it bad? Sure. But again, First Amendment protects Louis Farrakhan to say things that are, bigoted and hateful towards other people. The contradiction with the feminism is that it's a woman's march person who's really, it's a woman's march person. She's representing the women's march, and she goes to this guy who's the most misogynistic person you could find, who for years by the way, the Nation of Islam, under the previous leader Elijah Muhammad, they low-key had polygamy for certain people. Elijah Muhammad had 4 wives, and he had a lot of illegitimate children and children from wives who were not acknowledged and things like that. So, he's a disciple of Elijah Muhammad, peace be upon him, or something. Rest in peace. That's the contradiction there. The feminism angle is where the contradiction is. What you're talking about with the anti-white stuff, and also he said, by the way, I have. Why don't we move to my article, okay? Because my article, and I'll share it to you later. It's in the description, by the way, Mad Dodge. It's from the Hard News Network. Fuck censorship, fuck establishment media. That's their motto, and I stand by them. So they hosted. This is from 1962. This was George Lincoln Rockwell hosted, and you can see behind them, there's not another white person behind him and his 2 lieutenants here. This is the American Nazi Party, hosted by the Nation of Islam, because you have a white separatist group, the American Nazi Party, and you have the Nation of Islam. It was a perfect symbiosis of causes at the time. That's kind of what you're going along with, that they hated white people, and Jews happen to be white, a lot of them, most of them probably. Um, that's where the contradiction is, in terms of being anti-racist. So this is a very long article, but I go through here. Let me just highlight these different. Here we go. Farrakhan is so sexist, he makes Howard Stern look like Justin Trudeau. So I have actual links here where Farrakhan rebuked men that allowed women to be the breadwinner in the household. So that kind of goes to what we were talking about before. He yells at women, excuse me, who can't cook as being lazy and unfit to be mothers and wives. He repeats the same thing in 2013. So he said that one time in the 90s and one time in 2013. Then he's so gay, anti-gay. Sorry, he's so anti-gay. He makes Hank Williams Jr. look like Freddie Mercury. So this is a clip from 1972 where he calls homosexuality unnatural. This is all on video. Okay, this isn't me taking it from a news clip or from anywhere. It's all him on video saying what he wants to say, and he's perfectly entitled to that. But it's not consistent with the message of the Women's March. In Farrakhan, he vocally, in 2012, he condemned Barack Obama for endorsing gay marriage in 2012, and he used the same Sodom and Gomorrah parable as any Christian right preacher. So I mean, how much more evidence do you have? Do you need to have in order to see that he's not fit to be the leader of a progressive organization?
Well, I mean, when it comes to the Women's March, though, I don't remember her name, but one of the women that helped put it on actually believes in Sharia law, right?
Linda Sarsour.
So, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, they kind of have a track record here of not really being all that feminist, at least in the idea of actual equality, anyway.
Yeah, there's also I have a clip of him, speaking of Linda Sarsour. So he has a long history of fighting with traditional Islamic leaders. So in 1984, he claimed in an address, so this is his religious bigotry. He claimed in an address that in the eyes of God, he is much more important than Pope John Paul II and Ronald Reagan. And then he said he's going to lift up the skirt of the Pope to show what's really there. So that's religious bigotry towards John Paul II. Then there's a whole thing. Nation of Islam isn't exactly the Islam that we think of with Sharia and everything. It's kind of more of a, I don't even know if you can call it an offshoot of Sunni Islam, because there's a whole mythology to it that has nothing to do with the Quran and a race agenda that has nothing to do with Islam. It's just a different religion. So basically, the most important thing here is he was condemned by Muslim leaders at a certain point, and then in the 1990s, he yelled at them and I have a clip of that. He says, "Who do you think brought the Quran to us?" And then he yelled at the Arab nations and their leaders, calling them a group of faggots for not standing up to the U.S. So, I mean, how much, I feel like Rudy Giuliani, prosecuting John Gotti here. It's almost like, how much more do I have to bring here to show that this guy, there's virtually nothing that he provides that can overlap with the message of the Women's March, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I would mainly agree with you. And when it comes to feminism on a whole, I really think they've already pretty much achieved equality, and now they're just trying to get superiority for, historical failings, I guess.
Yeah, I would say that they're using historical, like you're saying, they're using historical grievances in order to gain political power for them and their leadership. But they're, like you said, I would say feminism has probably accomplished most of the real goals of the movement.
Yeah, no, and if these feminists really wanted to help, they would shift their attention from the West, where they've won, and they would shift it to Asia and to the Middle East, where they still have a lot of work.
Yeah, there's a lot of cultures, especially in East Asia, that we can talk all day about the Middle East, but in East Asia, it's not as if women have equality over there. I don't think that Japan has ever had a female prime minister or anything. I know Korea has, but she was basically Hillary Clinton 2.0, and she got impeached or something. So, you know, is that a teaching moment about women's leadership? I don't know. I'll let other people make that conclusion. But Brazil has had a female president who was impeached. Brazil is one of the more progressive countries in the world in terms of women's rights. So, you know, I think, who else? Argentina, I think, has had a female leader she's had like a lot of scandals, Christina Kirchner. So it's not just an issue of, you know, what genitals they have. They have to have really good resistance to temptation while in office. That's really the problem with promoting, you know, candidates just based on their gender. That's probably the reason that Theresa May is such a failure. Who, by the way, she ran in the leadership contest against another woman, Andrea Leadsom, and I remember that her opponent had to leave the race because she made fun of Theresa May for not having any kids.
Oh, really? I didn't hear about that. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, and you know, retrospectively, I wish she hadn't done that, because we wouldn't have had Theresa May, who is honestly a joke. I don't know why anybody takes her seriously. So, Mad Dodge, I don't know how familiar you are with Jeremy Corbyn in England. Do you have any impression of him? Do you know much about him?
Just what I've learned from passing conversations with Cabbage and stuff. So not really.
Oh yeah, I think I spoke with Cabbage once on your stream. So, oh, by the way, WBUR FM in, I think it's Baltimore, says you shouldn't yell at your Alexa because it's sexist. So everybody make sure not to do that. You can probably solve that by not buying one. Jeremy Corbyn, we're going to go to that topic right now. I had something here. So for those of you that don't know, the anti-Semitism issue in British politics is also a big issue, but we're also talking about the issue of support for terrorism there, okay? Because you have Jeremy Corbyn. He's a person who, in the past, he supported the IRA. The IRA has attacked, you know, British targets in the past. I thought I had this report open, but never mind. So there's a report by this guy named Dave Collier, who is a blogger, and he went and took some screenshots of a group of anti-Zionist Facebook people. And, you know, anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are kind of a gray area. So some people who are on the left who criticize Israel, they have a point where they say, well, I can hate the Israeli government and not hate Jews. You know, it's not like the two are, what's the word, synonymous. They're not synonymous. However, if you look at the pages of most of these groups, you do get people who creep in and they end up inserting some of the actual religious bigotry or ethnic bigotry against it. And, you know, again, in my country, in America, we believe in freedom of speech. And I believe in freedom of speech, including people who say things that are either false or, you know, they're very, I would say, targeting of individuals, even people like me. But in Britain, where there are hate speech laws and people are put in prison, you know about the Count Dankula thing, right, Mad Dodge?
Oh yeah, Nazi pug. And then I covered the Lawrence Southern and Brittany Pettibone incident on the Red Eye just the other day, where they're turning away Canadians, which are members of the Commonwealth. Oh, they're turning them away at the border, and they're journalists. Laura Southern had White House press pass when she worked for the Rebel. She is a journalist. She doesn't do what we do. She was actually a fucking, you know, journalist.
Yeah, this is
not putting either one of us down, especially you doing your articles and stuff. You're a little bit more of a journalist than I am. I'm just a talking head on my show.
Right, but we're all working here with I mean, I think if you don't have freedom of speech for the public, I think freedom of speech for journalists doesn't work either. And I see what you mean with that. But you know, with what they did with Count Dankula, you know, I think either he was sentenced or he's up for sentencing for teaching his dog to say to raise his hand like he's, you know, saluting Hitler or something. I think that indicates that Britain's free speech laws, and that was a joke, by the way. So they don't have a commitment to free speech, and somehow yet Labour's leader, who is Jeremy Corbyn, he gets away with all sorts of crap, and he always says, "Oh, I actually I abhor anti-Semitism," but he gets caught again and again saying things or doing things that are very anti-Jewish. And all I'm saying is that there should be consistency under the law. So here's some credit here. They say that there were two Jewish anti-Zionists, one in the UK, one in the USA, who have been in contact with the author David Collier, one for more than a year, over growing discomfort at the levels of anti-Semitism they have been witnessing. So he says thanks to them. And then a labor activist who has worked tirelessly for several years combating the anti-Semitism that has infested the UK Labour Party. So they identified some of the political activists. So let's see if we can get to some of these people. This is Eliane Green, page 14. So Eliane Green is the person who added most of the races to the groups. She added Paul Eisen. Now, some of these people apparently could be, Paul Eisen could be a Jewish person. So there are Jewish people who hate Jews too. So it's not like it isn't. It's not like it is contradictory. I mean, just like there's Christians who hate Christianity, or you know, possibly there could be ex-Muslims who hate Muslims and also hate Islam, which is a crime in the UK, by the way. You can't criticize Islam. So it's the same idea with there are a number of Jews. Gerald Kaufman, I think, is the name that comes to my mind, who are known for this. So let's see some of their posts. The Wailing Wall is not Jewish. They talk about Ken O'Keefe, who's bragged openly in London about hating Jews since he was 8 years old. They're linking Israel to 9/11 and terror attacks in Paris with no evidence. Okay, this was by the way, so the context here is that Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, was a leader of this group, not a leader of the group, but a participant in 2015. So you can see here, if you see my cursor, there's the date January 2015, and he was a colleague of this Eliane Green. Eliane often shares stories from sites that are outlets for Holocaust denial. And here they're bragging about the Holocaust denial contest in Iran, where they had all these drawings that were basically making fun of. Here you see the train to Auschwitz under, you know, blocking the Dome of the Rock. Okay.
Well, so where do you stand on people making jokes if it's actually a joke and it's not
on them?
No, sorry about my friend. But no, people just making jokes to be kind of edgy, you know, compared to actual articles like the Daily Stormer puts out, where, you know, they're actually trying to push this anti-Jew agenda. But what about somebody making jokes? Is that a problem? Should they be arrested for a thought crime? I mean, even in the UK.
I don't believe that any of this should be a crime. This is not what I'm talking about. Any of this. I think like jokes and even, you know, as long as this isn't a direct threat to somebody. I'm not talking about arresting somebody over this. What I'm talking about is you're the head of the Labour Party, which is constantly harping about anti-racism and anti-sexism too. They're very, very, very feminist. Everything that the UK government does has to be racist or classist or sexist or some other crap that, you know, that has to do with Marxism. And yet, and you know, if it was just jokes, I wouldn't give a shit. You know, I've heard every joke that there is. What I'm talking about is consistency. Just like with the Women's March, there's no contradiction between the Women's March having a leader who hates Jews and being a feminist. It's perfectly possible to do that. Maybe it doesn't make sense in somebody's mind, but how can you have a Women's March leader who is also supporting an anti-feminist like Louis Farrakhan? That's what I'm talking about. The lack of consistency, the pure, you know, they don't have any principles to guard because it's at their convenience. They love Louis Farrakhan, a lot of these people, because he actually in his program he pushes a lot of conservative values such as against abortion, for the family unit, and whatever. So they love that within the black community, but for the country at large, they hate if you had a person like Pat Robertson come out with the same opinions as Louis Farrakhan, they call him a Christian bigot or whatever. And I'm no fan of Pat Robertson. You know, I don't believe in you know, censorship by Christian groups either. You know, he's against certain movies coming out because they might be anti-Christian or anti. By the way, when Mel Gibson published his movie or released his movie, this was when I was still in high school. He had a Passion of the Christ. I was like, why is everybody so pissed off? He's just making a movie about his Catholic beliefs. They happen to portray a certain ethnic group in an unfavorable manner. But what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to censor every movie you don't like. And in reality, what that does, it in certain ways, it creates the Streisand effect again and again. This was before the Streisand effect. I think that happened in like 2009. So it was more of a success. That movie was more of a success as a result of these pinheaded boycotts by the ADL and groups like that. And in reality, you know, is Mel Gibson, does he hate Jews? Probably, but I don't care. I really find it hard to see where I should care about what Mel Gibson thinks. I like his movies, like the Mad Max movies. I don't look at him as the guiding light for my moral and political beliefs. I don't know about you. I mean, have you ever had a celebrity that you think his belief system is so awful that you can't listen to their music or watch their movies?
Well, Tom Cruise, after he went full Scientology, I kind of stopped watching his movies and stuff.
But
to be honest,
do you complain about it nonstop though, or is it like you just don't watch it?
I just don't watch it. I don't care anymore.
that I think. I mean, if you find it like for example with Roger Waters, I think I hate both his music and I hate him. So I just don't listen to his solo music, but his Pink Floyd stuff, fine. I don't care. You know, and I've talked about him like several times on some of my streams about, you know, Roger Waters being an asshole, but still having the right to appear in concert. You know, I say it too, you know, for your friend who might think that I'm joking in the background there. When people say that they should ban Roger Waters from, you know, appearing in concert because he's anti-Semitic, and they've said that about concerts in Long Island, I think in the Tampa area. I said, what the hell are you talking about? Just let him appear, and you know, he'll be out of town within a day. It's fine. You know, obviously, I think he's an asshole, but he's allowed to appear in concert. So,
well, I have a question though. Going back to Jeremy Corbyn. So you're saying his participation in this group is cause for concern. I can understand that, but they threw the same allegations out for Ron Paul. When Ron Paul was running in 2012, they dug up some old articles. They found a YouTube video with him talking about secession in front of a Confederate flag, which, my opinion, that's perfectly fine. But, you know, mainstream, that's bad. And they use that to tear him down when he's not racist at all. He's an individualist. He's the opposite of a racist.
So what's the question?
The question is, could the same thing be happening to Jeremy Corbyn here? Guilt by association.
There's a different issue with Jeremy Corbyn and with Ron Paul, because Jeremy Corbyn is not somebody who stands up for the freedom of speech, and Ron Paul is. And you know, there's plenty of, you know, I take issue with some of Ron Paul's positions with regard to North Korea or some countries. You know, his non-interventionism, I think, is to the logical extreme that, you know, the furthest logical extreme that's possible. So I do take issue with that. But he's never stood up to censor anybody else. Jeremy Corbyn has. He's never become the moral police over anything. You know, although he is anti-abortion, but he's anti-abortion for libertarian sakes. Also because he's a Southern Baptist by you know, personal conviction. But you know, so the things, you know, standing with a pro-Confederate flag group. Okay, but does that come to the same extent as this? You know, they were sharing stuff here, like the Mossad's fingerprints are on the Paris attacks, and that's from this guy, Brother Nathaniel, who is, you know, he's known for openly racial, anti-Semitic stuff, and it is. I mean, if you think I'm exaggerating, so go look at some of his videos. I don't even know if he's on YouTube anymore. So, you know. One of the reasons I'm against censorship is because if you want to research somebody and they're banned, you can't even back up what you're talking about. But you have here, this is from, they're sharing this link that the former leader of Cuba, Fidel Castro, says Israel and the U.S. fathered ISIS. So there is evidence that U.S. monies went to ISIS groups, but there's never been actual evidence that the Israelis have. This is from the Moroccan Times. It says a former CIA agent says the ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was trained by the Israeli Mossad. So this, I mean, maybe this is not true anti-Semitism. And then there's one here where they call the ISIS caliphate a Rothschild caliphate. Okay, so you know, is that anti-Semitism? Some people say it is. What else here?
Well, yeah, and I would agree that it is. It's kind of like the Holocaust, and I mean, we have proof that Holocaust. You know, there's no point in denying it. Armenian genocide also happened.
You're kind of fading out. So.
Oh, sorry. Is my mic better now?
Yeah, it's better now. So there's another one here. This is from Veterans Today. Veterans Today is a known it's a known fake news site. It's been known to post a lot of actually debunked theories. Okay, so I'm not a person who polices fake news, but this is from Radwan Samek. I think this was after Corbyn left, but they talked about the French attack of 2015 being a false flag attack by the Israelis. Okay. Then you have Eliane Green liking one that says, we must remember, too, who owns most of the media and why Jeremy Corbyn would not be a good appointment for them. So who are they talking about owning the media? Well, you know, that's an innuendo. I think you know, you guys can reach your own conclusion. I think we know who they're talking about. So then here is Eliane Green saying that intelligence is the key, and Shlomit Kleinman, who, and this would be by the name, this would be a Jew who hates the Jews. She would say, luckily the Jewish right-wing lobby is not as powerful as the one in the U.S. So she liked that. George Garside says the Jewish minority have far too much to say in this country. They are pandered to and overrepresented in the corridors of power, and their influence is dangerously close to treasonable. There are more LGBT people than Jews in the country. Where is their special voice? So they're complaining that there is no lobbying group for gays, but there is a lobbying group for gays. So this leader, Eliane Green, who does know Jeremy Corbyn and was cooperating with him on several occasions, yeah, this is basically how they would interact here. I don't have a date for this. Let me see if I can find it. But the date is important because it says that. So let's be clear. Jeremy Corbyn left that group in 2015. So then Eliane Green, this is from about 6 days before she started the Palestine Live group. So this is before the group. She says, Henry Andrew Hopkins is right. The BBC is now completely controlled. No hope. It says, hi, I'm Marcus Aegis, the new CEO of BBC News. I'm also married to Catherine Rothschild of the Rothschild banking dynasty. I will make sure we make some shit up every time my wife and family need me to. So.
Well, is that a hack against Jewish people, or is that a hack against the Rothschilds in general? Because, I mean, they are one of the richest families in the world.
Yeah, and that's why I think that the Rothschilds are a convenient punching bag for people all over the spectrum. So like you're saying, I don't know, some of this might be, you know how sometimes, and I'm not putting Jeremy Corbyn on trial here, but if we're talking about the burden of proof, using the Rothschilds or condemnations against the Rothschilds as being anti-Semitic now might not be strong enough, because everybody attacks the Rothschilds regardless of what side of the spectrum they're on. So I think you have a point there. So I think we'd have to disregard that evidence if you want to humor the metaphor there, although we're not putting him on trial. Okay. So here's another one from January 7th, 2015. So is some of this anti-Semitism? I think some of it is just pure fake news. So it looks like this is when Charlie Hebdo happened. It looks like a Mossad style hit was made today on the Paris offices of Charlie Hebdo in a clumsy false flag designed to damage the accord between I don't know who they're talking about, but Charlie Hebdo has never been revealed to be anything besides what it was, which was an ISIS and I think Al Qaeda attack against the magazine for blasphemy. And then Deborah Zaki here, who's one of the members, he says, I think anti-Gentile Jews should stop the genocide of the Gentiles in Palestine, along with severe hate crimes and land theft. Perhaps if Jews of the world condemned Israel, then people would not see it as a one-sided argument, just a Jewish voice and I don't know, and poll or something. So you can't see that. So, this I think, this report shows that there are plenty of people who are part of this group who simply they don't have any filter. Okay, a lot of them are 9/11 truthers. Should there be more investigation into 9/11 attacks and the causes for it, and what I watched Lionel Nation. I'm fine with investigating it, but part of investigation and Mad Dodge, I think you can agree with me, is that if you have a foregone conclusion and you refuse to entertain any other theory, it starts to cloud the judgment and undermine the legal standing of the investigation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then there's another guy, Tony Gratrix, who calls himself a 9/11 truther. Here we go. So this is something from him. So this is a screenshot of something that he made from, I believe, 2011, where he says, I admire the work you do and I am in agreement with virtually everything you say, except for your attitude regarding, I can't highlight this because it's a photo, but with virtually everything you say, except your attitude regarding the media. You state that the Jews do not control the media, but that it is under self-censorship. This is patently wrong, and only a cursory glance using the internet will show that a majority of the media is Jewish-owned or controlled. During the interview, you used the expression, who pays the piper calls the tune, and that is exactly the problem when one considers who controls the international banking system. So what did you say about that one, Mad Dodge? I think that one's like kind of...
That seems pretty anti-Semitic. But I mean, if you're looking at who actually owns the media, you're looking at 3 or 4 different media groups, holdings, and they are from, not necessarily, I don't think they're Jewish, I don't even know, but it's a very small amount of people that actually own Fox News, MSNBC, ESPN, and all these other outlets.
Yes, and I think it's interesting talking about it. And I'm not sensitive about the topic because, I kind of try to address people's questions rather than get offended by them. So Fox News is the one that people yell at the most, and they say, "Oh, it's Jew controlled and whatever." The guy who founded Fox News is News Corp chairman Rupert Murdoch, who is 100% of Scottish ancestry. He's Australian. So in that case, they're actually completely, utterly wrong and barking up the wrong tree. In other cases, CBS News is run by Sumner Redstone, who is Jewish. Is he biased politically? I'd say he's biased politically to the left, not to the right. NBC News, I think, also has a very senior person at the top who's Jewish. But most of those companies, you have Jeff Zucker from CNN, who's Jewish. But those people are not right-wing people; they're very left-wing people. And they piss me off more than they piss these idiots off. Here's a photo of Jeremy Corbyn appearing with this guy Tony Gatrix, and he says something about this story prompts Israeli false flag op and useful jihadi idiots into my mind. So he's claiming that it's possible that the July 7th, 2000, I think it was July 7th, 2004 or 2007 bombing in London at the subway. He's saying that it was a false flag. He's using he's using Yahoo News, which is fine, but this is from July 2015 when Corbyn was a member of the group, and he's appearing here with Jeremy Corbyn, and they're at a Palestine event and whatever. So here's another one that he says: the first great stone has hit the ramparts of Zion. The elders within the walls, down in the bowels of the fortress, have sat bolt upright, as they have felt this unmistakable rumbling vibration. Their eyes, which are usually narrow with the self-regard of the power of their own devious cunning, have suddenly gone wide with fear, as instantly they know that the inevitable has arrived upon them. So this is from a guy who says, let me see, I can probably find this article. But what do you think about those interactions?
Well, you broke up a little bit on my end, so I didn't really hear everything. But well, I mean, I don't really. Yeah, go ahead and clarify a little bit.
So some of this stuff is I believe, conflating anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. So I'm not here to say that every single criticism of Israel has to is necessarily anti-Semitic or whatever, but these people are gleefully calling. See, I can't even find this blog, unfortunately. But everything in this group is basically saying that this is a false flag. It's really the Jews. This is a false flag. This is the Jews. I want to welcome Joseph Stalin and Reverend Starkiller here. So Reverend Starkiller, I think we exchanged some words yesterday on a chat. And Joseph Stalin is always welcome, even though, you might have to atone for all those Ukrainians, buddy. In any case, let me see if I can find this.
Well, yeah, and while you're looking for that, when you're talking about the anti-Semitic versus anti-Zionist, the Zionism thing is like a select few Jewish people control the world. Isn't that the conspiracy theory or whatever? Isn't that the Zionist theory?
The Zionism thing is an interesting topic, and I think we'll close in about 5 minutes because I do want to go do some workout. But here's the issue here. The definition of Zionism is different depending on what side of the spectrum you're on. If you're on the extreme right, it's a lot of people who are international bankers who want to destroy the white race. If you're one of these black radicals, it's the same thing, but you insert the black people. If you're on the extreme left, it's a lot of international bankers that are exploiting humanity, and that's the Zionist conspiracy. But for people who self-identify as Zionists, that's not the case. Their position, and I talked to a Lebanese Christian Canadian anti-Zionist a couple weeks ago, and we had disagreements. I'm against U.S. foreign aid to Israel. I think we might have talked about that one time, and he was for it, and I was saying, what is your definition of Zionism? He said, well, all I care about is that there is a homeland for the Jewish people, and he believes that it's in the land of Israel, also known as Palestine, according to many other sources. So it's a matter of conjecture. That's why there's so much so much of a discrepancy between what people mean by Zionism and what people mean by being anti-Semitic or whatever. If you look at, by the way, a lot of these left-wing supporters of the Women's March are blatantly anti-Zionist. The JFREJ, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. They don't care about Farrakhan. They're fine with him. They're fine with a guy who said that Mexico is controlled by Jews. By Jews, he never said Zionists. He said Jews. But if you have somebody like Donald Trump, I personally, and I could be wrong, and Mad Dodge could be wrong, but would you agree with me that neither of us have seen evidence of Donald Trump hating Jews or whatever? I mean, I personally haven't.
Not at all. And actually, him moving the embassy to Jerusalem actually was something that at least Netanyahu really wanted, if not the state of Israel itself. I'd say he is an ally to at least the state of Israel, if not to Jews in general.
Right, and I think that for many of these people, they don't care about any of that. They're more into the identity issue. That's what the Women's March is about, and their identity is based on their ethnic identity. It's not even based on, for me, the religious element is significantly more important than the ethnic issue in terms of my Jewish identity. And I think that's the correct way to think about it. Most of these people who are hard progressives, most of them, and there are people who are extremely religious and they're anti-Zionist too, but most of them, they have very little connection to the religion. They actually think that the religion is very regressive. And that's one of the reasons that there is such a gulf between who believes in what's Zionism or whatever. It's kind of a real mess. And for somebody watching from the outside, anybody watching from outside, and I mean, Mad Dodge, you live in a state. It's possible that a lot of people there don't even care about any of this, right? Out on the West Coast, right? So people watching from the outside, they might not even have any clue what's going on. They're like, what the fuck's going on? There's a mess. I mean, what's your perception?
Well, yeah, there's actually not a Jewish population within Oregon that I've noticed, at least. And if there is, then they're like everybody else, Like, I don't understand how people go down the anti-Semitic road to begin with. Once again, I'm an individualist, so I will judge you on your character, you by your ancestry or whatnot.
You got some issues with the mic again, by the way.
Okay, yeah, sorry. You're about ready to wrap up anyway, so
yeah, that's true. So anyway, I do want to thank Mad Dodge. I'm going to look at some of these comments here. Pinochet is talking about the Gavin McInnes theory. We are ruining women by telling them to reject tradition and not have kids. Yeah, I think Molyneux actually talked about that a couple of days ago, but I didn't get to catch it. But I saw he put something up on there. You got, well, yeah, these are just a couple shit posting comments. But thanks for everybody for tuning in. Again, going to be chatting later tonight with Just My Stupid Opinion. Hopefully, Mad Dodge, you're welcome to tune in. I don't know if you're going to be on the stream, but Jim So as well. And we're going to be discussing Farrakhan feminism. And for those of you that have not shared anything, please share the article. I'm going to put the article in the chat. Please share it, and you can talk about it with your friends and neighbors about the fact that you have somebody who's openly one of the least feminist and least progressive people in their personal belief system, and people in the Women's March are like represented by him. I mean, what the fuck is that about? I mean, it's ridiculous. Everybody's making this an issue of, you know, Majus, like Joseph Stalin is talking about in the chat. But no, it's way beyond that. It's retarded. I'm going to say the word retarded. Okay. I believe in the freedom of speech. The Women's March does not believe in freedom of speech. Maybe if they change their ways, nobody will give a fuck, but they don't. They're all about restricting your free speech. If you think that you can say anything you want, shitpost people, don't threaten them, but tell people exactly what you think about them and not have any repercussions about it. Joseph Stalin said, "Did you say the R word?" Yes, I did. I said, he said, brave. Yeah, if you think that you can say things that are, you know, basically just freedom of speech, you know, not attacking people, but just saying, you know, things that are basically your thoughts, and not have to have somebody ban you from a website or drag you off of Speaker's Corner, I think you should take a look at this article, because the Women's March is not taking any action against somebody who supports somebody like Farrakhan, and that's an issue of consistency. It's not an issue of political correctness. So please like this video if you haven't already. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments what you think, and we'll see you around 7 o'clock. I hope I make it back in time for Just My Stupid Opinion. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your weekend.